Soul Hackers 2 is the latest JRPG I added to my collection, picking this game up on release day, the 26th of August 2022. Copies of this title were available for PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series and PC, with a mech-rendered retail price of around £50 or €60. Soul Hackers 2 is a cyberpunk-themed RPG made by Atlas using Amazon's Unity engine that exists as a larger part of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise. At a glance, Soul Hackers injects futuristic technobabble into a more traditional occult setting, and blends the dungeon crawling and demon fighting of the Shin Megami Tensei games with the futuristic neon stylings and digital world hopping found in games like Digimon Cyber Sleuth, with some aesthetic overlap with Scarlet Nexus. Soul Hackers 2's story follows Ringo, a fragment of technologically advanced collective consciousness who is given the form of a young woman to intervene in the affairs of the mortal world and prevent the destruction of humanity. Ringo and her partner Fig are tasked with keeping two humans alive, who their collective super intellect determines to be key to stopping the apocalypse. When they fail, Ringo decides to use the titular Soul Hack, a cyberpunk-themed form of resurrection, to bring one of the victims, Heart of Gold Devil Summoner Arrow, back to life. Less than an hour later, Ringo is now resurrected two other humans, one of them being the caustic Melody, and the other easygoing detective Saizo. These form the four-man party for the rest of the game, with each character using Devil Summoner abilities to take on the aspect of demons and fight off the bad guys. The plot does expand from there as Ringo and her team chase the holders of a mystical power and ultimately work towards stopping a group who want to use that power to remake the world into a utopia by obliterating the current reality. This story isn't lacking for purpose, as contrived though it may be at times, and it does provide a suitable justification for all of the gameplay that follows. I don't dislike the plot, but the game does get off to a rocky start trying to set up the premise. The opening 15 minutes just feel like someone wrote a dissertation and then used a thesaurus to swap out all the bits that made sense with the longest possible, clever sounding word. Even someone like me, who regularly writes circles around a point and never reaches it, could see that this was just too much. It is a shame too, as little over half an hour later, you're in the game, playing it, engaging with the content in a much more interactive way. It's just this early exposition dump that you have to push through. Ringo is a good protagonist, at least as good as we can expect for someone whose character is based upon the fact that she's still learning human interactions. Her character is simultaneously aloof and fun-loving, and wise beyond her years as part of her logical processing machine background. These are insignificant things when viewed on their own, but combined to make Ringo's character genuinely likeable, in a setting that could have just made her an unfeeling android. Most other characters in the game are strong presences too, with their own goals to achieve. There's just not enough characters in general to help prop up the latter part of the story, when you're looking for an emotional payoff or an unexpected twist during the reveal of the game's primary antagonist. After the poor exposition dump opening, the majority of the game is solid, well constructed and well paced. This is a third-person RPG where you explore the world, interacting with NPCs, merchants and vendors, and then going into dungeons where you fight other devil summoners or wild demons. These city areas fit well within the game's neon cyberpunk aesthetic, but each of them is quite small and contained. You see a lot more loading screens as you move between them than I think was necessary, but these areas and shops function as they should. You can chat with your party members to build up your bond for new skills that have tangible effects in combat, or speak with vendors to buy new gear and complete side quests to get money, items and further unlocks. Most of these activities send you into the aforementioned dungeons. Within a dungeon, running into a demon will trigger an encounter. You can get the drop on some enemies by giving them a quick flick with Ringo's sword, and this can give you a damage boost or knock them down so you can just run past. Combat follows a strictly turn-based formula, where each member of the team goes and then the enemy gets a turn. You have elemental attacks that of course use the Shin Megami Tensei naming system, as well as buff and healing magic to complement regular attacks and spells. During each encounter, you are aiming to hit as many enemy weak spots as possible, and here's where Soul Hackers handles things a little differently. Rather than knocking all the enemies down and allowing for a flashy all-out attack, Ringo gets a bonus move once all 4 members have attacked, called a Sabbath. This summons a number of demons equal to the number of weaknesses you hit that turn, and does damage to all enemies in battle relative to that number. Combat is therefore based heavily on a system which prioritizes hitting enemy weaknesses, and you are ineffective against anything a similar or higher level to yourself if you cannot do that. Ringo and her team can each equip a demon, which itself brings its own abilities to the party. Each combatant uses a weapon of their own and has some natural affinities for certain elements. You are not going to be locked into using a character in a specific way just because of their elemental affinity. You can ratchet up your power in multiple ways, but nearly all of them require you to turn away from the critical path and into side quest territory, at least once the game is finished tutorializing you. The game's difficulty curve does seem to expect you to do at least a handful of these size activities too. Even Soul Hacker's normal difficulty is rough if you don't regularly buy new accessories and fuse new demons. These demons are your biggest variable in combat. Outside of combat, they populate the corridors and dead ends within dungeons, offering items, money, and chances to recruit new demons. In battle, they provide your elemental affinity, and leveling them up provides equipment in the form of a mystique that usually correlates to a demon's affinity. Switching between them and fusing demons regularly gives you the versatility you need to beat a lot of the content. As this is a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series, it's fair to say there are elements of the Persona games here, although they do feel Persona-light. That mostly comes through the social sim side of the game, where you raise Ringo's relationship with each of her party members to improve what is essentially a friendship gauge. And when you reach certain points, you can travel to their own personal dungeon, with a place called the Soul Matrix, to defeat demons and unlock further skills and abilities. Soul Hackers does lean into its origins as a demon summoner title, and it does play with the occult and cyberpunk themes heavily, but it does leave itself out in the open in terms of a standout gameplay function. This combat is fine, but will always devolve into you just throwing elements at each new demon you encounter until you strike gold on the one that it's weak to. In many ways, this feels like a deeper, more mechanically rich Pokemon game, exactly like the mainline Shin Megami Tensei games. I found that while reviewing this, I couldn't stop myself comparing one Atlus-developed title to another. Each element of this game was dripping with the same style and flair, just not quite as much as Persona 5 was. What hurts too is that there is already an additional story DLC out for this game on day one. I didn't buy this DLC and can happily report that neither the normal or the true endings end on a cliffhanger. But was this created at the expense of an extra character that could have given the game's lackluster roster more depth? My minor annoyances with the game that we did get mostly fall outside of the remit of core gameplay and mechanics. First, the camera angle. This seems to be set to default at a low angle behind Ringo, looking up at her, so this perspective does not serve a function outside of keeping Ringo's legs constantly on show. There's no sprint button in the game, and I really did feel it was crying out for one, seeing as though you can just swat aside the enemies you don't want to fight. And I guess fitting with the theme, a lot of the dungeons are different variations on urban landscapes. It's not until the final dungeon that Atlus delved into their bag of tricks and threw up something meaningfully different. There's also no PS5 specific features, and switching to performance mode only had a marginal effect on loading times. This game's aesthetic appeal is entirely based on the art style, not graphical fidelity, so I can confidently say that you should just buy whatever the cheapest version of Soul Hackers 2 you can for a platform that you own. In conclusion, Soul Hackers 2 is a solid JRPG, with particularly satisfying character upgrade and class system through demon summoning. Another big plus is that the game is quite accessible, particularly compared to Persona 5 Royal's marathon of a 90-hour story. This is closer to a respectable jog at 45, and that accounts for a lot of the grinding I did to try and keep pace. If anything, this game was just an exercise in managing expectations. Not every title that exists needs to be stomping on the competition for Game of the Year honours, and if you are looking for a JRPG to tide you over until the likes of Diofield, Valkyrie Elysium, or the new Star Ocean game, I can give Soul Hackers 2 a solid recommendation.